choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. Because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one we intend to win.
Good morning, Insurance Syndicate. John Wetmore here, as always. Happy Thursday. And I'll just tell you, because I'm sure you'll figure it out as we're talking, it's not live this week. Normally I do them live, but we're at our big Family First Life convention this week, and I was going to do it live from there, and I had too many meetings, and I didn't want to miss the week. So any questions you guys have throughout, certainly put them in. David, his team, my staff, we'll come in here Thursday while it's going and answer questions throughout, and we'll go through like normal today, but we'll do our best to answer questions while it is playing Thursday. So again, appreciate you guys all getting on. David, thanks for getting on, dude. I appreciate your time.
It's my pleasure.
I know you got a ton going on. I appreciate you squeezing it in today. So guys, David, I believe you pronounce it Heier.
That's correct.
Pronounce your last name. Make sure I don't mess it up. He's a big-time CPA, runs a big partner in a big CPA firm, and has started. He's actually a preferred vendor in our group with agent tax management, and it's been I don't know how long you've been CPA, but I was reading your resume, dude. You teach at like multiple like really well-known schools?
Yeah, I'm currently on staff at Temple University in Philadelphia. That was my last assignment. So I teach as I have time.
Got it. I think there were a couple. One at Rutgers and
Drexel. Yep.
Man. Yep. Masters, I saw CFO background, business history, a lot of business experience and tax experience. The reason we decided to do this, man, is I get probably, I don't know, if I get 3 calls a week about who to use for taxes, it's a light week. In our group, I see multiple messages throughout the week as well. And obviously we've been sending people to you for a while. So really just wanted to give you the opportunity to come on, man, and talk about the importance. It's obviously tax time. I know y'all love agents and people that do it last minute and are unorganized. So I figured I'd give you the opportunity, man, to tell a little bit about what you do, how you can help agents. Because I've learned, man, I've been in this business 10 years now. And most agents are 1099. And most agents I know don't prepare at all, and I know a lot that are behind on taxes. So would love to hear a little bit more, man, about how you can help.
Well, that's unfortunately a reality with most people that go from the W-2 world as an employee to being self-employed as a 1099, because what they don't realize right off the bat is they have to pay double the Social Security and Medicare tax, which amounts to 15.3% of their income. So they say, a lot of people say, oh, my mortgage interest on my charity, my kids. Yeah, that's all fine and dandy. But but that doesn't take away from the obligation from the Social Security and Medicare tax. So if your net income from your business, your 1099 business after expenses is $100,000, and let's say you have enough deductions to wipe out all of your income tax, you're still going to have that $15,300 Social Security tax bill that's in there. So that's one of the things that we try to educate our clients.
Yeah.
We try to teach them the right way to keep their books and records, to keep their fees to a minimum, and to make things easier should there ever be an IRS examination.
Yeah.
So, we instruct them to keep everything in one bank account, business related, and don't pay any personal bills out of your business account. If you need money out of your business account, you take a distribution out of your business account, put it into your personal account, and pay all your personal bills from your personal account. I can tell you that there's nothing that drives an IRS auditor crazier than seeing a bank statement with all kinds of different transactions going on and trying to decipher what's business and what's personal. And they just say, well, it's all personal, and they disallow a lot of stuff. So that makes it easier. Also, credit cards. A lot of the agents use credit cards for travel, for meals, for different auto expenses. What I recommend is use one credit card for business. Don't run any personal bills through it. Make it all business. If we do that on a monthly basis, it's easy. Our bookkeepers can go in there and summarize your income and your expenses easily and efficiently and keep the fees down. If you come in and give me a bank statement with 14 pages of transactions, of which 10 of them are personal expenses, it's going to take my bookkeeper forever to get it done, and your fees are going to be through the roof. It's not helping you. So that's the first thing. The other thing I try to teach our people is to make sure you keep an auto log, because I know that the autos are a big part of the expenses of a typical agent. So the IRS has specifically stated that unless you have upon an examination, unless you have a contemporaneous auto log, which details where you were, who you went to see, and what the business purpose was for, they will disallow the deduction. They will not take an estimate. It's one of those revenue raising kind of things. So we like to see an auto log. So it can be as simple as keeping everything in a Google Calendar, or summarizing it in an Excel worksheet, or there's tax software. There's software like MileIQ.
That's the one I use.
Yeah, and it's easy. You just plug it in, boom, and it gives you a printed up report. And the IRS agents, from my experience, will accept those in most cases.
Yeah, so I like that one because I don't have to do anything. It just tracks it. It like knows where I start, where I finish.
Right.
And it's pretty cool.
The old story is it's form over substance with the IRS. You might have all the logic and all the reasoning to support an expense, but if you don't have it in the proper form, you have a problem. So, for example, if you go out and have a meal and you put it on your credit card, well, let's say you went out and you had a meal and you met with John, and John and you discussed the new carriers that you're bringing on board, or the new nuances of the industry, and you did all this stuff. The conversation was great, but nothing was documented. If all the IRS sees is a meal on such and such a date at such and such a time with John Wetmore, they won't know that the meal was with John Wetmore, what you discussed, and they can theoretically disallow that meal because it doesn't have the proper form.
Yeah.
So one of the things you need to do is when you go out and you spend money on something that's not self-explanatory, like a meal, you want to document who you were with, what you were spending it on, what you were discussing, things like that. And it takes you 30 seconds to do it. But if you don't do it, again, I'm trying to prevent the problems in an audit.
Yeah. I got audited once when I was like 20 and broke. It was not fun.
No, it's
and
not.
I didn't even have any money, and it wasn't fun. I can't imagine if I went through an audit today, how much of a disaster it would be.
Well,
I'm pretty good.
Let me tell you something. There's 87,000 agents they're talking about hiring at the IRS. Do you honestly think that they're going to be sending them to audit the top 0.1% in this country? Or do you think they're going after people from the $0 to $400,000 range, which is where a lot of undeclared income is?
Got it.
Or overstated expenses. People that are very, very wealthy can afford to hire a full-time lawyer, a full-time CPA. They don't get themselves into trouble. It's people that don't have that kind of money that do things and they get in trouble. So that's what we're trying to do. We try to be like the preventative medicine. We're the baby aspirin that you take when you get up in the morning so that your blood runs freely through your body and you don't have a heart attack when you get of age. That's what we're trying to do, to give you the preventative medicine that you don't have a problem. And if it happens, we can get you out of it in most cases.
Hey, what's the deal with like writing off a car? How's that work? I hear a lot of things on social media.
Okay, so that's an interesting question. So first of all, people hear the story, oh, well, if I get a car that's over 6,000 pounds, I go get a Cadillac Escalade on December 31st and I buy it, I can write the whole thing off. The answer to that is possibly. And let me explain how. It's based upon your business use. So if you buy a $100,000 car and your business use is 30%, well, first of all, you wouldn't qualify for the Section 179. It has to be over 50% business use. But let's just say it's 55% business use. You can only take 55% of it. The other problem with that is if you take all that expense in year one, what happens in years 2, 3, and 4 when you're paying for that vehicle and you have no write-off because you took it all in the prior year? Effectively, that doesn't make sense. You take yourself down to a zero tax bracket, and the way the tax bracket is now, it's progressive. It goes 0 to 19,900 is 0, and then from 20,000 to, let's say, 40,000, it's 10%, that bracket, and from 40,000 to 75,000, let's say, would be 11. I'm just making up numbers, but that's the way it goes. So you want to take advantage of those lower tiers and not write yourself to a zero tax bracket. So that's part of the tax planning that we do.
So y'all can be strategic about it and tell me what to buy, when to buy it, how to expense things.
Exactly. But here's the other thing. Unless you're driving a very expensive car, when I define very expensive, I'm talking $175,000 to $100,000 car. Typically, the standard mileage allowance is better than the actual expenses. If you have actual expenses, what you need to do is not only keep track of all your miles, like that you have to do either way to support your business percentage, but you have to keep receipts for all of your gasoline you buy, your repairs that you do, car washes, things like that. Those are all part of the maintenance of a vehicle. The government gives you a standard 62.5 cents a mile, and you just take that expense, and typically that's better than keeping all the track of everything, and it's usually more advantageous to do it that way.
So it's one or the other. You can't write the car off and then get mileage.
No, you have to pick one or the other. That's correct. Dang. But in my experience, most of the time, it's better to have the standard mileage number, to take the standard rate. It's a lot easier. Now, what I also tell people, my experience in audits, if you say you drove 20,000 miles for the year, the government's going to want to see a repair invoice from the beginning of the year and a repair invoice from the end of the year showing the mileage that would approximate the 20,000 miles. So that's something else to keep in mind that most people don't even think about. But if you get your oil change, keep that receipt in January and keep your oil change receipt in December. And that way that'll document how many miles you said you drove.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd imagine if you get one of them new agents trying to do their job, and you're probably not going to win against the IRS, I'm guessing.
Oh, listen, the way I look at it, I've been doing this for 40 years. I have a lot of experience. I have my CPA, my MBA. I know a lot more than they do.
That's true.
They're government, not to knock government workers, but the top tier people are not working for the IRS. They're working for one of the big 4 CPA firms, which incidentally, I started with one of the international firms many, many years ago. So the top people that come out of college go to the big firms or the regional firms. They don't go to work for the IRS. Now, if you're really good at the IRS, you're not going to be doing an audit of a people like the agents that are coming to ATM. They're going to be auditing the people that own the insurance companies that are in the 0.1%. That's where their top agents go. So typically, not that you're not going to find a sharp agent, typically the lower tiered agents handle the lower dollars because there's less that they're going to get.
Makes sense. So in the ideal world, because you do like bookkeeping for us, like keeping track of stuff, is that the easiest way? Like, I would imagine that probably costs less for the agent in the long run, working with you throughout the year versus just going like, here's all my stuff at one time.
Well, first of all, the most important thing is not the cost. The most important thing is knowing how your business is doing throughout the year. So when you deal with ATM, we do your books and records on a monthly basis, and we send you a balance sheet and an income statement, and then you get to pick up the telephone and talk to me about it. And we can look at what your business did. I was 20 plus years a CFO. So I don't just know how to do a tax return or do a financial statement like most CPAs. I know how to run a business. That's what I did. And what they get is my expertise as being a CFO for all those years. So I'll give you an interesting story about how I look at business different than most CPAs. One of my clients, they did about $35 million a year in revenues. And I would go out there on a monthly basis and do their outsourced CFO work. And I noticed that their UPS charges went from $200 a week to $225 a week. And then the next month they were like $250 a week. And they went all the way up to $400 a week. Now, what you're talking about is a $10,000 expense that most CPAs on a $35 million company would call that immaterial. It doesn't matter. It doesn't mean anything. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can see that
So,
for sure.
but thinking like a CFO, because I ran a business for 22 years, I look back and I say, what does that UPS bill represent? So I would oftentimes ask my students, what do you think's going on out there? And the students would say, oh, well, somebody's stealing UPS charges. They're shipping stuff to personal people. Oh, that's possible. Or UPS is ripping us off. Or UPS machine is not working properly. Heard all kinds of things. So I said to the client, I said, do me a favor, can I see your UPS manifest? And this was a distributor, and they had about 25 trucks in their Philadelphia location. And I took a look at the UPS manifest, and I saw a whole ton of shipments going from their warehouse to someplace else in the same zip code. And I start to think to my mind, I say, why are they shipping all this stuff right down a block where they could easily put it on one of their trucks and drop it off? Wouldn't that make sense?
Yeah.
So I get in my car and I program it into my GPS and I go over to the place. And what is it? It's a bar. Walk inside the bar, I sit down, I order an ice cold Coors Light, which is my one draft, which is my preferred go-to cheap drink because I'm a cheap date. And I ordered a roast beef sandwich and I looked behind the counter and what do you think I saw? All of my client's product. What was happening is this client, they would brag to me about how secure their system was and how they had great people working there and people would take a bullet for them and nobody could ever steal from them. And what they didn't realize, there was two guys in there that were doing the UPS and nobody thought to check the UPS manifest.
No way.
There was about $250,000 that was stolen from this client in 6 months' time. So I ask you, is $10,000 material? The answer is, you're darn right it is. So the answer is the numbers tell a story. So having that kind of a mindset, that's what you're getting with our firm, with our resources. We don't just do the books. We don't just do the financial statements. We don't just do the tax returns. We help you steer your business to profitability and look at what things mean.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe that gives you a little bit of an understanding of the level that you get with us.
So a couple $100 extra bill went to $250,000 in theft.
In 6 months.
Crazy.
Yeah, and that's a true story. And it's funny because I asked all my accounting students that one, and they come up with all these answers, but no one came up with the thought that somebody was using the UPS to steal from the company.
Put their own product in it and ship it out. That's wild.
Yeah.
I didn't think that. I was an accountant, but I wasn't like everyone asks when I say I was an accountant. They're like, "You were a CPA?" I'm like, "No." I just
well, you know what CPA stands for, right?
Tell me.
Can't pass again.
That second one would make sense.
That's right, and that's
I have a little bit of that.
Yeah, well, we are like that because we stay on top of people. Excuse me, we stay on top of the clients to make sure we get their data and we get it input. And if there's a problem that we're seeing, we're going to say, hey, wait a second, are you aware of you spent this much money on this expense this month?
Yeah,
they're not going to know because the agent's job is to go out and make money. Am I right?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Our job is to do everything on the back end for you so that you can go out and make money and not have to worry about it. And outsourcing to me is the greatest thing. Listen, we have a decent sized firm here, but we don't do a single payroll tax return here because it's not what we do. We sub it out to either Paychex or ADP or one of the payroll carriers because it sometimes pays to pay somebody else to do certain things that are a pain in the neck that you don't want to bother with. Yeah. And we have relationships with both ADP and Paychex that we get preferential rates for any of the agents that come up and have employees. We forward them over to one of those two carriers, and I bid one against the other to get them the best rate. Which leads me to another thing about independent contractors versus employee. That's a very, very big issue going on right now. And I've talked to quite a few agents, and they have people that work for them and non-agents, but people maybe that do some marketing or maybe that do some administrative work, and they want to make them an independent contractor, a 1099. And I tell them that what the government is doing is they're cracking down. That's what most of the issues are coming out, not just with the IRS, but the states and the cities are going after that. And let me tell you why. It started out back in the 80s when they started with, when, if you probably don't remember the Hillary health years, because I have a few years on you. But when Bill Clinton was president, Hillary was trying to put through a national healthcare system like the Obamacare.
Got it.
And one of the things they were trying to do is to force everybody to put people on medical insurance. So that's where they initially started trying to reclassify everyone from an independent contractor to a W-2. But look at what the IRS's input and the Treasury's input is now. Not only do they want that because there's the Obamacare, but they want the employer to be their tax collector. Because what happens, just like we talked about, an agent gets a 1099 from the insurance company, and they've never had 1099 a person in their life. And now all of a sudden they find out they owe $30,000 in tax and they don't have it.
Yeah.
So they don't want that because they don't want to be in the collection business. They want to be in the business of collecting their revenues to pay down that $31 trillion deficit, which is growing every year. So they're starved for cash. Yeah. So one of the things they're doing is they're saying, basically, you are an employee unless you can prove to me otherwise. That's the way it is in New Jersey and California, incidentally. Prove to me that you're an employee or else you're an independent contractor or else you're an employee. They will look at things like, do you have an independent contractor's agreement? Do they have the ability to take a loss? How many people do they have as other customers besides you? Do they advertise to the outside world as being an independent contractor in this business? Do they use your tools of the trade? Can they be hired and fired by you? These are just some of the things that they look at to determine if you're an independent contractor or an employee. And if they find that you're an employee and not an independent contractor, it can be a catastrophic event. So that's why one of the conversations we have is, let's look at who you're paying these 1099s to, and let's see what they're for, and let's see if they do marketing for 25 other customers as opposed to just you. Yeah. So that's another thing to be aware of. One of the other things we do also is those people that get into trouble, we're experts in what's called the offer and compromise program, where we go to the IRS.
What's that? I didn't know what that was. I saw that on your website, but I didn't know what that was.
Yeah. What that is when people get into trouble, they have a program. You know, you hear these thieves on TV talk about the different things. Some call it a Fresh Start initiative. It's basically the offer and compromise program, and they charge tens of thousands of dollars to do it. We charge a lot less because we're honest and we're ethical. So what they do is they look at what's in the best interest of both the IRS and the taxpayer to give them a fresh start. So basically what we do is we look at the difference between what your cash flow is and what the allowable business expenses are. We come to an agreement as to how much you can afford to pay for a 2-year period, and then the debt is wiped clean. Now, that's the simple answer. Sometimes it's a lot more involved than that, but we have had a lot of success in that. The key thing that I learned in my master's program was not anything about business, because I probably knew more about business than most of my professors. In fact, the accounting professor would come up to me and ask me questions. But I did learn to write really well, and I call the OIC program the cry test. If my secretary cries when she reads the letter that I submit to the IRS with the form to explain what their situation is, then I did a good job. And generally, we've done pretty well with it. But if you don't qualify for that, there's other things we can do to get to a payment plan or to get the debt deemed to be uncollectible. There's a lot of different things we can do, but that's another separate component of what the firm specializes in.
So you can get people out of poop.
Yes, we do. That's right. Man. And you know what? I feel really good about that, because when I take somebody that had this weight on their shoulders of the government coming down on them, threatening to take everything they have and give them a new lease on life, it's a great feeling for me. It's not about the money, it's about doing what's right for people too.
Yeah.
So
how important is like the setup of it? I remember years ago, long before we met, I was working with a CPA and I sent a buddy over. I've always just been like, I'm not smart enough. I don't want to mess with any of it. And I've just always paid people to handle this side of the business. I know enough to be dangerous, and I still don't want to play with it. But I remember I sent a buddy over that he'd kind of done his own through like those online things. You can like do your own taxes or whatever.
Right.
And I sent him to my CPA at the time, and he was telling me like the dude paid, it was like 20 grand in self-employment tax because he didn't have his like LLC set up the right way or whatever. Like how,
No, one of the things we do.
I might be saying it wrong, by the way, because I'm not.
It's the right concept. So I'll just clarify it. So what you're referring to is if you're an S corporation versus an LLC.
Yeah.
And one of the things we do with all of our clients is we look at what type of an entity you are, and we determine what's in your best interest. So the difference between an LLC and an S corporation, let's talk about that because that's an important thing that I was going to get into as well. So an LLC, 100% of what the net income of the business is, that's the income received from the insurance companies, less all of your allowable expenses. Let's say that number comes up to $100,000. You pay income tax on that, and you pay Social Security and Medicare tax on $100,000.
Yeah.
Okay. If you're an S corporation, you pay your income tax on $100,000, just like on the LLC, but you also to the extent if you take some of it out and if you don't take it out in salary and you take it as a distribution like a dividend, none of that is subject to the Social Security and Medicare tax.
Got it.
Okay, so everyone thinks, oh well, let me be an S corp, and I'll take 100% of my income and I'll take it as a dividend and pay no Social Security and Medicare tax. Sounded great, right?
Yeah.
Leave it to the pigs, and the pigs are the lawyers. Okay, because I'm not too fond of most. And leave it to a lawyer in 1986 called, his name was Radke, Radke, and you can look up it's a Supreme Court decision called the Radke decision. And what happened is he was a lawyer, and he took 100% of his income as a district is subchapter S income, paid no Social Security and Medicare tax, but he paid his income tax. The government came in and said, listen, this does not work for us. You were looking to avoid paying Social Security and Medicare tax. So now what they say is you have to declare and pay a reasonable salary.
Oh, okay.
So,
I remember when my CPA made me do that.
Right.
Yeah.
You have to take a reasonable salary. If you don't take a reasonable salary, you have a problem. Now, how do we feel about this thing? Well, the Trump Tax Act implemented something called the pass-through 20% deduction that went through for all pass-through entities. So let's talk about that a second. Let's take this single member LLC and they net $100,000. You would pay tax on $100,000 less than 20% pass-through deduction. So in that situation, you would only pay income tax on $80,000. So the tax savings on that $80,000, on that $20,000 helps offset the additional Social Security and Medicare taxes that you're paying.
Got it.
It's still cheaper to be an S corp, but there's a lot more exposure, and we can talk about that. If you have multi-members, if you take unequal distributions, you can blow your S election and be deemed to be a C corporation and have double taxation. That's a nightmare. But not only that, listen, we all want to pay money into Social Security because at some point we're going to want to collect some. Yeah. So if you pay in very, very low salaries on your S corp, you're paying very little bit, a very small amount in for Social Security, and years down the road, you're going to have a problem. So for most agents right now, I like the LLC model because the additional Social Security and Medicare taxes that you pay, it's almost offset by that 20% pass-through deduction.
Got it.
Okay, not 100%, but you're effectively getting a subsidy for that. Now, if you're making $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 a year, you would probably want to be an S corporation, and I'll tell you why. You would draw a reasonable salary, which would be at least the Social Security max, which is like $150,000 and change, and pay your Social Security and Medicare tax on that. But everything on top of that would be based upon your efforts of building a business over the years, and you're reaping the profits of your company, and you would save the unlimited Medicare tax plus the Obama tax. It comes out to 3.8%. So if you have a $500,000, a $550,000 salary income, and you take $150,000 in salary, you would save roughly $16,000 in Obama tax and Medicare tax. A lot of facts, a lot of information, but this is the kind of thinking that we do. We do a lot of significant tax planning based on everyone's personal situations. One of the other things, what's that?
I was going to say when I was like 20, I used to do one of those like TurboTax or whatever they're called.
Right.
I assume it doesn't, there's no way that can be the best way to do things today
Well,
for
what I
like people making money.
well, for anybody, what I find when people come to me because they did their return with TurboTax, the biggest mistake they make is they really blow their state and local taxes. And for those of us
Really?
who live in states that have a state income tax, they don't. The TurboTax doesn't do very well with the state programs. The other thing I see, a lot of people will get a 1099, a W-2 form, and enter the W-2. They'll get two copies of it, so they'll enter the W-2 twice. They think, oh, I got 210. Yeah, they don't know.
Yeah.
Remember, TurboTax is a tax program, and it only knows what you tell it.
Yeah.
So I always tell my clients, what's a good night's sleep worth?
Yeah, it's true.
So basically what you have with us, you have the resources of a full service CPA firm. You have tax planning throughout the year. So what we do is we prepare estimated tax payments so that you don't get into trouble at the end of the year. You pay your taxes as you go. So it's just a cost of doing business. We make your life a lot easier. We do the monthly consulting with you or quarterly consulting, whatever you need to go over your profit and loss and your balance sheets every month so that you can see where you stand and how you did. You'll have a bookkeeper assigned to your account, and myself or one of my accountants on staff here will be assigned to your account to go over everything with you. You have the guidance that you're going to need to grow your business. We have a tremendous network system where if you need something, we typically know somebody in that business. So there's a whole lot of stuff that goes along with. It's not just a bookkeeping service; it's a lot more.
Man. And you can do nationwide, correct?
We do. I have
Yeah.
people all over the country, and I do people out of this country.
No kidding.
Yeah. I do a lot of military people and their families.
Yeah.
That's where it gets complicated. But yeah,
Yeah.
our software does every state in the union.
Cool. So the process, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we've been sending people, and I think it's working. They go to agenttaxmanagement.com,
Correct.
set up a consult with you,
That's right.
right? What's it? 15 minutes, 30 minutes? I don't remember.
Yeah,
how long it
whatever
is.
they need, about 15 to
Just
30.
whatever.
Mhm.
Okay. So you get all their information, and then you go, here's what it'll cost monthly.
That's correct.
Here's what it'll cost if we do your taxes. Here's what you just give them everything.
Well,
and then choose.
the tax work is all included in there. We quote, we expect when we take a look at what's involved, we project what it's going to cost to do the tax return, to do the bookkeeping services, to do the monthly financial statements, to do the phone consults, and we factor that all into the fee, so you don't get any surprise fees. And if it turns out to be a nightmare where you promise me I'm going to get one bank statement with just business expenses and I get 3 bank statements mixed with personal and business, I'm not going to just charge you more money. I'm going to discuss it with you first and then work it through that way.
Yeah. So that monthly, I think the last. What do you want to share some of the pricing? Because I didn't realize that included
Typically,
the starting point.
you're right. The typical fee is $400 a month for a single member LLC. If you're a multi-member or an S corp, it's typically $500 a month. But that
includes the tax return.
That includes the tax return.
I didn't know that, dude. I got to get better at my pitch. I thought that for you.
No.
I thought they were paying that plus their taxes.
No. We try if we do the prior year's tax return. I have a lot of agents I've picked up that haven't filed returns in 3 and 4 years, believe it or not.
That's what it was.
So that's a separate thing. But we try to build relationships, and I'm not like looking to take advantage of anybody or get rich off of anyone. I want everyone to grow with me and grow with them so that we can all make money and be happy.
I like that. Just spread it out instead of getting a big old bill at once a year. That's pretty neat. Pretty neat. I love it. What are a couple things that you think people that you see in your experience that people miss that would benefit them? Maybe write-offs or things like in general, things that they go to you catch.
Right. So one of the things we recommend is if you a lot of people talk about the home office expense. So let's talk about the home office expense.
Sure.
Yeah. Basically, the rules are if you use your home office and you want to write off a portion of your house and a portion of your utilities and all that other stuff that goes along with it, you can do it. But the place has to be used exclusively for business, and it's sort of a red flag The government came in and said, listen, we'll give you a rent deduction of $1,500 a year without even questioning it. If you use that room for business and for personal, that's fine. And that's one of the, it's a little thing, but $1,500 adds up. Your cell phone. A lot of people don't realize your cell phone. If you're using your cell phone for business, that's a deduction. Your home office internet expense, that, you know, to the extent you use it for business, that's a deduction. Planning where you go. So when you go out for in your car, if you're going over to your friend's house and the friend happens to be next to the post office, you're going to the post office. Then you come, then you drive another block to your friend's house. So the post office trip is deductible, and only the mileage from the post office to your friend's house is not deductible, and then a trip home is deductible.
What if I want to go to the post office in Costa Rica?
Well, that's a problem. But what about if you want to go? No, but what about, and this is indicative of the life insurance industry, you have a lot of travel expenses.
Yeah.
So here's the other thing with it. We'll go back to the home office expense. In order to deduct your miles, your trip from your first stop from your house to your first stop is theoretically personal. But if you have a legitimate home office, your first stop is your home office. So if you don't have a home office set up, your mileage from your home to your first stop is personal, and from your last stop to your home is personal. Only the mileage between is deductible. When you establish a home office, your home office is your office. So that's one of the things to do. You guys travel a lot. You do a lot of that stuff. Yeah. So you can. The government says anything you need to do to make you better at what you do, you can do within reason. So if there's an insurance convention, or if there's a seminar somewhere, an educational seminar somewhere on sales or something like that you want to go to, and it happens to be in February, and it happens to be in Los Angeles or San Diego, why not go? You can do that and deduct the expense. Yeah. That's a legitimate business expense that people. So you have to plan things. So what I recommend is, if you have something in mind, pick up the phone and call me. Everyone gets my cell phone number. Every single client gets it. So I ask people to call me, like I tell my students, call me at any reasonable hour. Because students, their reasonable hour is 2:00 in the morning. I say 9:00 to 9:00 Eastern time is reasonable time. So I'll pick up the phone, and if I don't answer it, it's because I'm with somebody, and I'll get back to you. But yeah, if you have a question, you pick up the phone and you call me. I don't have a stopwatch next to me that ticks off how like lawyers do, and send you a bill for 1/10 of an hour. I don't do that.
What give them? We'll end with this, because I know you got a call soon to get on. Give them some, like the name of the show is Tactical Thursdays, right? So I always try to leave people with something they can implement right now to better their business in some form or fashion. Give them some kind of tips that would help in this world that they can easily implement right now.
Well, for one thing, you can implement the home office deduction to take that expense. You can immediately open up a separate bank account for business and a separate credit card for business, and segregate your funds. That's huge. Yeah. Not only does it make it a lot less expensive from the accounting standpoint, because you don't want to pay me $1,000 a month to go through bank statements. Sure. It makes it a lot easier for you to see what's going on. And we want to educate you on how to keep your books and records the right way so that they mean something to you. Like the story I told about the UPS charges. Mm-hmm. Every number means something. And if we see something that doesn't look right, we're going to get right on it with you. So those are some initial things that we can go with.
I love it, man. Well, I appreciate your time, man. Is there any way you prefer they get in contact with you, or sending the website's the best way? Or what do you prefer?
Best thing to do is to go through the ATM website, log on, book a consult. I will be there at the conference in Miami. I'll be there on Wednesday night, Thursday, and unfortunately, I have a destination wedding for my daughter-in-law's sister that I have to go to. Okay. So I will be leaving Friday morning, but Jacqueline, my assistant, will be there. So someone from our firm will be there the entire time. So you can.
Y'all got a table, right? Amanda said she got a table. Yes, I believe. Yep.
That's correct. And we'll have a little sheet for you to fill out your information so that we can know who you are, and follow through with you. But yes, if you book the appointment, that would be great. And then we can go from there. But I promise you, we'll give you a good night's sleep and enable you the same way we don't do our own payroll. We send it out to ADP. It's the same thing. You want to outsource this stuff. This is a headache to you, but it's what we do every day and we do it well. So let us do all of your accounting work and your bookkeeping work and your tax work, and you go out and concentrate on making money. Because in the general scheme of things, what you pay us is insignificant based upon the amount of time it would take you to do it, where you could be out hustling more business. And that's the whole thing. Let us do what we do, and you go do what you do. That's the way it all works.
Amen, bro. Well, I appreciate it, dude. I'm looking forward to seeing you at the event. Again, agenttaxmanagement.com. You need anything, let David know. And as always, if I can help with anything, y'all know how to reach me. Feel free to reach out.
Right. And Alex will be there. She's my one of my preparers, and she's one of my accountants that works with us. And it's her sister that's getting married, actually. Cool. So she's going to be leaving on Thursday. But Jacqueline is going to be there with us as well, and she's going to be probably the main contact for everybody. So to get for everyone to know, put a face with a voice, and she'll be there to answer any questions.
So those of y'all coming to our event, I know not everybody here is with us, but any of y'all coming to the FFL event, feel free to come up to go see them at the table and get questions answered. So
absolutely.
Excuse me, I'm a little under the weather today, so
appreciate it. Feel better.
Appreciate your time, man. All y'all have a great day. Again,
and I'll see you tomorrow sometime, I'm sure.
All right, brother. Have a good one.
All right. You too. All right. Bye-bye.